On today's episode, you can always run from your problems, but I can no longer run from this movie. That's right. For the very first time ever, I watched Minority Report. What is up, everybody? Jake Baker here. I have an intro that I normally do. Let's see here. Welcome to Clear Tinted Classics, where I, your host, Jake Baker, watch classic movies for the very first time with no nostalgia attached to it. And, I got it. I'm going to rewind this. I'll maybe cut that first part. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Clear Tinted Classics, the show where I, your host, Jake Baker, watch classic movies for the very first time and give my nostalgia-free opinions on them. I got it that time. And today is a special episode. I have a guest. I didn't ask how you wanted to be introduced. Do you want your full name?
Yeah.
Okay. Taylor Jordon Guy is here. Say hello, Taylor.
Hello.
Yes, and that's right. Today we're doing Minority Report, but since this is Taylor's first episode, I wanted to ask you sort of like what's your relationship with movies, and then like I'd say just generally with movies and TV and even pop culture. Let people kind of know where you're at taste-wise, and then maybe you can tell us a little bit. Like Taylor did suggest Minority Report, so I'd like to hear maybe why you recommended the movie and stuff like that.
Okay, well, I would say my love of movies, actually pop culture, I like how you said that, started back in 6th grade or 7th grade. They had a pop culture class for the first year ever at my school, and I took it and I loved it. And we watched like old movies, old TV shows, things that happened in history. And it just like sparked something.
Was this at Heritage?
No, this is at Jefferson Middle School in Fort Wayne.
Oh, you said 7th grade. Okay.
Yeah. But
we went to the same high school.
Yeah.
Junior, senior high school.
I was definitely not at Heritage.
I was going to say, I was wondering.
I'd be so pissed off. Like, why wasn't I in that class?
I know. That's crazy. Okay. So in your middle school.
Yeah. So like 7th grade, like original Saturday Night Live shows. And like, oh yeah, like Land Shark, the whole, yeah, it was great. And so, and then when I got cable for the first time, I would just sit and watch. It didn't matter what it was. Like, I would sit and watch it. There's movies I've seen that I will probably never know the title of because I just never even looked. I'd sit and watch all of them.
Wow.
The weirder, the better. Horror movies, I love them. Minority Report, I'm pretty sure I saw it at a drive-in, like back in 2002. Like,
that'd be a good drive-in movie.
I know. Because I'm thinking about it, I was like, I know I was with my mom. It had to have been a drive-in back in 2002. It was a good time. I loved it.
How does this movie look on a drive-in screen? It's got a very unique look. It's very I read somewhere after I watched the movie that the DP, the director of photography, bleached the film to kind of give it the bright whites and the shining look. I'm kind of curious what a drive-in screen viewing of this would look like, if it would work well or if it would look like trash or
I mean, so I was 11 or 12 in 2002, so I don't think I could have judged, like, colors and, like,
judged colors.
Now I'd been like, yeah, this is absolute garbage. But, like, back then I probably was like, oh, yeah, cool movie.
So, circling back, you said you like horror movies, you like weird stuff. I know for sure you're a Buffy fan.
Oh, yeah.
I assume you're still a Harry Potter fan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Some people kind of...
I have a Hufflepuff sweater on.
Fair enough.
I think my socks are Hufflepuff. Well, no, those are pizza. But yeah, 100% still Harry
fans
Potter
of pizza
fan.
are welcome too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like Harry Potter's been weird lately because like J.K. Rowling keeps like doing shit, and it's like I try not to date these episodes because I never know when they're coming out. So I'm not referencing anything in specific that she's done, but it's like it seems like
she'll probably do something else, so it doesn't even matter.
It's just like it seems like every other month it's like, oh, what did JK do again? And so I'm a big fan of separating the art from the artist.
Oh yeah.
Like for sure. Like there's tons of stuff. Like I did my third episode for this show was Chinatown, and Roman Polanski directed that movie, and he like very infamously did some very bad stuff. But for me, the movie's still good. It
Yeah.
didn't ruin the movie for me.
It's
And
like
so,
Woody Allen movies.
sure, exactly.
I still kind of like Woody Allen movies, but I don't like Woody Allen.
Yeah, I actually still need to cover Annie Hall's. I haven't seen it. It's on my list. I think I've only seen a couple of his movies, but I find them pretty enjoyable. Like, kind of respect the
art.
Yeah, just being able to crank out a movie every year. It's kind of interesting, like something to aspire to.
Well, what you were saying about separating the artist from the art, like J.K. Rowling, she made a world, and like there was no stopping that. Like whether she made it or somebody else, like that's a world now. Like fandom, everybody's obsessed. Just because she does something bad, like people are already even like who are huge Harry Potter fans, just all they did was cross out her name on the books and like done. Emma Watson made Harry Potter at this point, so.
So as far as how about, I'd be curious about what's your relationship with sci-fi and Spielberg. And I will say, before I get into my preconceived notions, I'm sure somewhere in the dark, deep recesses of my mind, I knew this was a Spielberg movie, but I did not know this was a Spielberg movie. Like when Spielberg's name popped up in the opening, I was like, oh shit, is this a Spielberg movie? And I was like, I don't know why I don't associate this movie with him. Or, so, I mean, are you a Spielberg lover? Are you a sci-fi lover? Like, why this movie?
I think I'm a huge sci-fi lover. Oh my gosh, my whole life, huge into sci-fi. But I never know when it's a Steven Spielberg movie. Like until like the end of the movie and the credits go up, I'm like, oh, he did this. I didn't know he did this either until I was looking online some like facts about it. The only facts that I found were it was originally supposed to be a sequel to Total Recall, which I've never seen. But
I actually have. There's an episode that'll probably never see the light of day. I did an episode on Total Recall, which the reason that those are associated together is they're based on novels or short stories by Philip K. Dick, who also wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is what Blade Runner is based on.
Oh, I've never seen Blade Runner either.
I actually just watched Blade Runner I'm not trying to, I worry about saying these things so I don't know what episode order I'm going to do, but I'm doing an episode of Blade Runner. It's literally, I'm making plans with the people who I'm going to record that episode with. So I just watched it for the first time. Not to spoil it, but it's good. It's not great. Some people really love it. It set a tone, and it's something that like it's like the Beatles almost in a way where it's like they created something and there's so much stuff that has sprung forth from it. And a lot of that stuff is stuff I would argue is better than but you have to respect.
That's like Buffy.
Yeah.
Buffy sparked a lot of stuff and a lot like
I do think
huge.
I will say,
but then people don't think Buffy's that great, even though they inspired a lot of what's on TV now.
I think Buffy
or Joss Whedon in general.
Yeah, but Buffy for me, because I didn't even come to it till pretty late.
I'm gonna say this: we should probably not start on Buffy because I won't stop.
Okay, I will just as a baseline. I actually think it does hold up better than a lot of people would think. But
thank you.
It's worth returning to. I didn't come to it till late anyway. Like I didn't grow up watching it.
Yeah.
I didn't start watching it till like I don't know, like
you told me
2014, 2015 or something like that.
You told me when you started. You were like, you like Buffy, right? I'm like, yes. I've been watching it since it aired on TV. Like I remember waiting for those episodes to come out, and like I remember the episodes of when like Buffy died, and I'm like, the show's over. The show's over because it was like a finale episode. I'm like, oh my god, the show's over, and then it had like 3 more seasons after that. I'm like,
yeah, but I do. It is kind of that's part of the give and take of the premise of this show is like getting to experience something when it first came out without like being spoiled. Like it's like I know there's 7 seasons of Buffy. When Buffy died, I think at the end of season 4.
I think it was season 5. Oh, maybe you're right.
It's like I wasn't like, oh, she's gone forever, but I can't imagine what it would have been like to, to be like the show's over. Oh,
you're gonna make me emotional. That was a rough episode. I lived in Cherubusco in the country at the time. There wasn't much going on. Oh gosh.
And I will say, and also in defense of the show, though, like more than most shows I've seen that just kind of cop out when a character dies, like they really like didn't when they doing that, it did heavily affect the show going forward.
Yeah.
They did a lot with it. Like I will always remember, because the reason the reason I think it was the end of season 4 is because I think in season 5 is when they do the musical episode, and the musical episodes where
It was season 6, I think.
season 6 is the musical episode. So you might be right. She might have died at
Because
the
the
end of season
musical,
5.
maybe.
Whatever season they do the musical episode, that's the episode where she reveals finally that she's like, I was in heaven and I was actually pretty cool being dead, and you assholes brought me back, and I'm not happy about it, and that's why I've been like a major bummer.
Yeah.
Because I listened to I literally listened to that episode, just the soundtrack from the musical episode, like on its own all the time still.
Oh, I have it. Yeah, I have it in my Spotify. I love that.
It's in my iTunes, which apparently doesn't exist anymore, but it does for me. I still use iTunes, and literally today I was having a conversation with my friends, and they were judging me pretty hard for it.
Using iTunes?
Yeah.
I don't think I've used iTunes since I had an iPod Touch.
I guess
like high school.
I guess Apple discontinued it, but like it's on my old laptop, so
weird.
that's just what I use. They're like, no, we do like Apple Music now and whatever. I don't know.
Of course they do.
I still live in the country and I don't have the internet, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you said as far as like Spielberg goes, you're not like.
I like Jurassic Park.
Okay.
That's Spielberg, right?
Yeah.
I fucking love. Oh, sorry.
No, you say fuck, cunt, shit, whatever.
Great. I fucking love Jurassic Park. All of them. It doesn't matter.
I've only seen the first one.
Oh man, some people are like hate all the other ones, but like they're all great. They all have dinosaurs in them. Even Jurassic World, like I love that one too. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of haters for saying that.
Well, you don't have to worry because almost nobody listens to this show, so there would only be like a small percentage of people.
I'm gonna listen to it later and hate on myself.
Who was that bitch?
Did you forget about 4? No, I didn't. It's still good.
I'll one of these days I'll if I get completely desperate for content for this show, I'll just say, yeah, sure, Jurassic Park 2 is a classic. Why not? Let's do it. Like someday I'll do The Godfather 3, and I know, even though I've never watched it, I know that it's like traditionally awful. As far as Spielberg goes,
sorry, I'm looking up Spielberg movies.
Well, that's fine.
Because I have no idea.
I have a weird relationship with him where it's one of those things where he's not like, if you ask me like, who are some of your favorite directors, or even just objectively, who are some of the greatest directors of all time, I don't find myself saying Spielberg a lot, but the man has made some incredible movies like Jaws.
Oh yeah.
Which is like amazing. Jaws is amazing. And I'm sad because I've watched it. I would love to do it for the show. Sometimes I consider doing like a reverse premise episode where I'm the one that's seen the movie and maybe the guest hasn't seen the movie.
I like that.
And I would love to do Jaws because Jaws is just, I just bought it on DVD recently and I was using it as my like go to bed movie for a while. And I just like watched the opening scenes of Jaws like 20 times in like 3 weeks. Which my current go to bed movie is Batman Forever. So I've seen the opening to that like 17 times.
Like Tim Burton?
No.
Oh.
Tim Burton's the first Batman, and then Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Batman Forever is Joel Schumacher.
Which one's in that?
It's
who plays Batman in that
Val
one?
Kilmer.
Oh.
It's the Jim Carrey one.
Yeah. I like that one. I love Jim Carrey as the Riddler.
I grew up with it, so I have a real soft spot for Batman Forever. Also, Nicole Kidman's in that movie, and I love Nicole Kidman.
Me too.
I'm planning on starting, not to get into my other content, but I'm planning on starting a YouTube series where I just watch Nicole Kidman movies.
Moulin Rouge, right there. Yeah, we won't get into that. I love Nicole Kidman as well.
Spielberg, I mean, he's great. Like, I'm not one of these people that like loves E.T., but you have to respect E.T.
I don't. No offense. We were me and my boyfriend and my friend were literally just talking about E.T. last night about how it's a terrible movie.
I haven't watched it in a
I was
really
terrified
long time.
of that movie as a kid. I was gonna say Hook is Steven Spielberg.
Hook is Steven Spielberg.
That's in the list on what I found. I like Hook.
The Indiana Jones movies, obviously. I have seen the first one. I've not seen the other ones.
I fell asleep during the first one.
It's a good movie.
I don't know.
Some people say the second one's decent, and they say the third one's pretty good, and apparently the fourth one's a dumpster fire.
Oh yeah, once you get into fourth, fifth, sixth of movies, like stop.
Yeah.
Don't even watch them. I just watched Deep Blue Sea 3 the other day. I didn't even know there was a Deep Blue Sea 3.
Oh, jeez.
What happened? I didn't even know there was a second one, to be honest.
I love the first one.
The first one's great. I have that on DVD. I love that one. LL Cool J is great.
Yeah. Sam Jackson gets eaten by a shark. And,
Oh yeah.
yeah, LL Cool J is good in that movie.
He is great.
So Jurassic Park, though. Jurassic Park's great. I think Jurassic Park is an interesting... I think there's a real direct line. I will say before we fully leave just Spielberg as a general topic, I've been kind of a hater on him. Not a hater, but I've been saying that he's like washed up for a while now. I generally can't think of many movies that he's made, especially in recent years, that are any good. He's still churning them out. But
Is he?
yeah, like, I mean, he made like...
What's his newest movie?
I mean, like, he made Ready Player One.
Oh, I wanted to watch that after I read the book.
I think that...
I haven't read the
I
book.
think that, like, Post Office movie was him recently, like, in the last couple of years or something like that, which I don't want to dunk on that one too much right now, since not to date this episode, but the USPS is in dire straits right now, and so gotta support the mail, guys.
Yeah.
But like, you know, this movie's 2002, and at this point, like, I think for me, I've always kind of thought of it like, oh, like after the 90s, Spielberg is useless, but I guess that's not really true. And I'm sure if I was looking at a list of his filmography right now, I'm pretty sure there's some stuff from the 2000s that I'm forgetting that is genuine
AI.
There's like, I know there's like a couple that I'm just like straight up forgetting, and I will say I haven't seen fucking the Nazi movie, the Schindler's List. I haven't seen Schindler's List. What?
No, because my mind went to Inglourious Bastards, which is completely different tone than Schindler's List. I was thinking of like an action-packed movie because it's Steven Spielberg. No, Schindler's List. Sorry.
Yeah,
my condolences. I didn't mean to laugh like that. It was
well. It's funny because like he does still pack in. Like, Steven Spielberg perfected the art of the blockbuster. Like, he essentially created the blockbuster with Jaws. Like, Jaws was the thing that opened the door for what we consider today the modern blockbuster. And I think going into Minority Report, I had a much different idea of... In my head, I'm like, yeah, this is like hard sci-fi, dramatic. It's going to be like super dark and gritty. Like, and in my head, I was picturing Blade Runner, which I think is fair because same, you know, novelist that kind of created the world. But, you know, he is, like you said, he is the same guy that did Total Recall. And Total Recall is actually a very goofy movie.
I kind of think Minority Report's kind of a comedy.
Well, that's why...
Like, you can't really take it too seriously.
I kept being hit with like random moments that I was like, oh, this got really goofy all of a sudden. Like, I mean, not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but like when Tom Cruise is chasing his own eyeballs.
Yeah, I was just about to say
I was like,
eyeballs.
what is happening right now? Like,
that's my favorite part. Maybe that's the only reason why I like it, is that part right there made the entire movie. Like, what?
So yeah, you know, we're talking about Minority Report already. Let's get into it. So I'll do my summary. I've been editing my episodes, and I noticed that every time I get to summary versus preconceived notions, I go, which one do I do first? And I can never remember which one I do first. And I always like have to psych myself into like figuring out what sounds better. Like, should I do my preconceived notions first before I do the summary? Yeah.
I would do a summary and then preconceived notions.
Let's do this. Yeah, I think that's...
Because then you could do like a summary and then be like, well, this is how I feel about it.
Yeah, let's do the summary first. So if for some reason you're listening to this episode and you haven't seen Minority Report, why?
Walk away now.
Walk away now. But
we're about to ruin the whole movie for you.
I'm going to give a brief synopsis of the movie with spoilers. in case you, for some reason, are just like a big Taylor Guy fan and you just got to listen to this episode and you don't give a fuck. You got to listen to her thoughts on Minority Report, even though you've never seen Minority Report. Here's a
I think people are sitting at home going, I really want to know what Taylor thinks of Minority Report.
Never seen it, but I got to know what she thinks. So here's a brief summary of Minority Report. Basically, it takes place in 2054. It takes place in this future world where there's this crime division that's been created called pre-crime. They have these 3 psychic people that they keep in a milk bath, essentially, who can predict murders, specifically murders. I noticed that it's just murders and there's no other crime that they prevent.
Yeah, they even go on because they're the most intense, that's what they see.
And so this entire crime division has sprung up, which is the head guy of the whole thing is Max von Sydow, whose name is Lamar in the movie. But the guy who basically runs the show is Tom Cruise, who's playing John Anderton, not Anderson.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a draft of the script where it was just Anderson, and I'm like, maybe stick with that. Anderton is a very weird fucking name.
Yeah, it's futuristic.
Yeah, I guess.
Last names are future. Oh, what if we offend somebody with last name Anderton?
I'm sure someone's called Anderton, but fuck them. So John Anderton, he heads up the pre-crime division. The movie opens with like a really great sequence that kind of establishes what they do. They basically they catch a case. It's a red ball, which means it's like a crime of passion. Mm-hmm. It's like it wasn't premeditated. They even like drop a hint that it's like no one in Washington D.C. really does premeditated murders anymore.
200 miles.
Yeah, it's basically like if you even think about murdering someone, the precogs are going to catch it. You're fucked, so just don't do it anymore. So they mostly catch red balls and
brown balls.
Yeah, well, red balls are the.
Oh, brown balls are the.
Yeah, red balls are the.
Ignore me.
Like it's about to happen in like 30 minutes type thing, and so it just does a really good job of showing you like how the thing works. Colin Farrell's playing an agent that's brought in to like sort of audit
FBI.
Their division to see like because they're about to go national. As it stands in this world, the pre-crime division only exists in Washington, D.C., but it's been so successful that they're like, we're going to take this national. So Colin Farrell's been brought in. He's playing a character whose name I kept forgetting, Danny Whitweir. A lot of times I just call the characters by their actor names.
Yeah, I prefer that. Well, some of them I know. But.
So Colin Farrell's, it's a really good thing because he doesn't know how it works. So he's being explained how it works and he's being like, challenging too, so it makes it not just like a pure exposition dump, but he's kind of like, well, that doesn't make sense, and they're like, but you see. So Tom Cruise prevents a crime at the very last second. It's like a really good, intense scene. We get a feel of the world. We find out Tom Cruise goes home at the end of the day. We find out he's like addicted to drugs, and his son went missing a long time ago. I guess they said pre-crime's been around for 6 years. Yep. His son disappeared 6 months before pre-crime. So we can roughly assume it's been about 7 years his son's been missing. I thought they just implied that he was straight up had been murdered. But you find out towards the end of the movie that it's like, no, he disappeared. And there's maybe the faintest, vaguest hope that he's not dead, which actually does make it weirder and more tragic in a weird way. But so Tom Cruise is like a shell of a man, you find out, even though we saw him be really competent. But as soon as he's home, he's just a fucking mess. He's watching like old movies and shit.
That's very cringy.
And I guess it's the summary's already getting really long. But I will say, just to set up, this is super future world. So there's all this like fancy pants hologram technology and clear screens, and he's got this edit bay that he controls with these weird gloves and shit. And so like when he's watching his home movies, it's like he's watching like these holograms of like his son and his wife or whatever, his ex-wife. And so anyway, back on the job, another case comes through. What's this? It's Tom Cruise is doing the murder.
What?
And so he's able to keep a lid on it for like 2 minutes, and he makes a run for it. Now the very division that Tom Cruise is in charge of is after him, and he and then the movie like goes from there. It's just Tom Cruise trying to figure out like, how am I going to murder this guy? I don't even know him. The system that he's been a proponent of and defending and heading up is now turned against him. He's on the run. There's points of this script where I was like imagining the screenwriters being like, oh yeah, like that's
good.
That's good.
That's
like,
what we're doing right there.
The crime is turned against, the tables have turned on Tom Cruise. And there's other moments I'll get into later where it's like, oh, it's so poetic. So I mean, yeah, and I think that's fair. It's just big chunks of the movie, not to hand wave it, but just like he's on the run, trying to figure out who this guy is, why. He finds out that there's this thing called a Minority Report, title drop.
Zing.
That sometimes the precogs will disagree about what's actually going to happen. And so he becomes convinced. He's like, I'm not going to do this murder. I got to steal the most powerful psychic, Agatha, played by Samantha Morton, who the one piece of research I wanted to do before I hit record and that I didn't do is look up this piece of information, which I'm going to do on mic right now because I'm too lazy to hit stop. Samantha Morton, her.
Is she in anything else?
She's in yeah, so okay, so I was right about that. Cool. She's in some stuff. She's in Synecdoche, New York, if you've ever seen
what?
that. Synecdoche, New York.
I've never heard of it.
It's a Charlie Kaufman movie. So the thing that, for some reason, I really had it in my head that so you know the movie Her?
Yeah, I've never seen it, but I do know that it with Joaquin Phoenix and that hot chick.
She never shows up in the movie, but ScarJo.
Yeah.
ScarJo plays the AI that he falls in love with. But for some reason, when this movie started and I saw Samantha Morton, I was like, why do I know her? And I was like, in my head, I was like, so very infamously, she was the voice of the AI while they were shooting the movie. Oh. And they made the choice in post to replace her with Scarlett Johansson for some reason.
Oh, I don't like that.
And so it's tough because Scarlett Johansson does a great job in the movie. Like, she's fantastic, but I feel really bad. There's a lot of people that were like, Samantha Morton was just as good, if not better. And it's kind of shitty what they did to her. And I don't know why they replaced her.
I think Scarlett Johansson's a great actress, but her voice is they're just using it for the name.
I think so.
100% just trying to sell the movie.
Yeah,
Nobody knows the other girl, so.
I don't mean to disparage her performance. I will say, I watched it fairly recently for the first time. It's fucking incredible. The movie's like...
I had to check it out. I love Joaquin Phoenix.
I will say, I think most people say Joaquin.
Joaquin?
Yeah.
I always said Joaquin.
Joaquin. I mean, guys. I
don't know.
Guys,
Joaquin? Really?
Joaquin Phoenix.
You just ruined my whole life. What is my life? It's all a lie.
I mean, he's great. I will say Her was one of those movies. It's like everyone says it's incredible. It's great. It's the top of everybody's list. And I was like, all right, we'll finally watch it. And I watched it. It's like, oh, it literally is just that good.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, Tom Cruise goes on the run. You find out that he basically, there's a lot of twists and turns, but you find out that at first it seems like the guy who he's supposed to kill maybe was the guy that abducted his son. It's revealed in that scene that that guy was just hired to pretend that he abducted his son so Tom Cruise would kill him. Tom Cruise is being set up by who? Oh, spoilers, Max von Sydow.
His best confidant friend.
And boss has set him up. Why did he set him up? Oh, it's because he murdered...
He's a dick.
Well, he turns out he murdered Agatha, the precog's mother, to make sure that she wouldn't...
Doesn't take her.
Yeah, and so he wanted to preserve pre-crime. So it's very elaborate. We'll get into it in more detail when we're actually talking about it. But so Max von Sydow, by the way, amazing actor. He's in a million things. Exorcist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
And he's just like, you could look at his IMDb and it's just like, holy shit, this guy's just
great.
And he's such a presence. Great bad guy. Almost too good. The whole thing is like, I've never seen the movie before. The second he showed up, I was like, oh, he's like gonna be the secret bad guy or whatever. And it's like,
I hate when that happens. I like to be surprised with stuff, and I I have a problem when I watch a new movie. I'll like guess exactly how it's gonna end. People hate me for it. Can't you just watch? No, I have to solve the case on my own.
I usually go along for the ride, but
Nope, I ruin it for myself like 5 seconds in. Oh, that's the killer.
he's got too much gravitas, and they try to like not use him too much in the movie to almost like make you forget about him.
Yeah.
And so every time I kept waiting for it to turn out that Colin Farrell really was a bad guy, because people that have listened to this show before know I'm a huge Colin Farrell stan. Colin Farrell's like literally maybe my favorite actor.
Really?
Like I have a real hard on for him. And speaking of, he is.
Me too, but for other reasons.
I don't know why, but in this movie in particular, I was like, he is like fucking hot in this movie too. I was just like obsessed. He's
He's just so young.
It was funny because I was listening to something and I was like, oh yeah, I love Colin Farrell, and it wasn't like until The Lobster that I got to be like, see, he's amazing.
I wanna see that.
But I don't know why I said that, because I've loved him. I think you could watch like In Bruges from like 2008. And he's incredible in that too. Colin Farrell's just my favorite. So this is a movie that like was huge movie missing on my Colin Farrell like watch list. I've knocked it off finally, and I'm excited. I'll defend Colin Farrell all day. I think I think people think of him and like they're like, yeah, he played like Bullseye in that bad Daredevil movie.
Oh, I like Daredevil.
I think it's fine.
Fuck with me, man. I like that movie.
They associate, but I'm like,
and I liked Elektra. Yeah. I said it.
But I think they think of maybe that and like Phone Booth, but he's literally in some of my favorite movies of all time: The Lobster, In Bruges, Seven Psychopaths.
Oh, wait, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, Seven Psychopaths is literally one of my favorite movies of all time. And he's been
in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
I have not seen those, but I know he's in them. He's also he's in a movie Saving Mr. Banks, that about the lady who wrote Mary Poppins.
Oh,
He plays her alcoholic father in her flashbacks, and it's like, man, that movie's, if I was doing like my top 10 of movies that made me sob like a little bitch, for some reason Saving Mr. Banks, I don't think I've cried, maybe not the hardest at that movie, but maybe I cried more during that movie than like any other movie. For some reason there's just long stretches that are so tragic, because like you find out like in that movie, it's her story with a nanny coming in to save this family is all from like her trauma of like when she was a child, and she had this alcoholic father who she loved, but he was a terrible dad. But you know, he's one of those guys like, but when he's present, he's great, but he's just had so many issues and blah, blah, blah.
I hate it when people say that. When he's here, he's great.
If you haven't seen Saving Mr. Banks though,
I'll check it out.
Tom Hanks plays Walt Disney.
I was gonna say I've never cried at a movie before.
Oh,
that's a lie. I cry at every movie. I cried at Minority. The biggest shocker, I've cried during the Matthew Broderick Godzilla, when Godzilla died. Back when the movie came out, like as a child, I cried at that movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. I cry at every movie.
I don't think that one was quite a tearjerker for me, but
everybody is so shocked by that. She was a mom and she died, and all her babies didn't have a mom anymore. How is that not sad?
That's fair. I think that's fair. I'm pretty open about. I don't cry a lot at real life, but movies are just able to like flip that switch for me. I think my most recent cry was an episode of The Orville that I've been watching recently.
The show?
Yeah.
Where it's like aliens?
Yeah. It basically started off as a Star Trek parody.
Yeah.
But turns out the show's actually really good. My friend introduced it to me.
Is it still going on?
Yeah. I mean, it's on hiatus like everything is right now.
I started watching it. It's with Seth MacFarlane. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started watching it. That first episode when they're like in the museum, that was really cool. Was it the second episode? I can't remember.
It's been a minute. I started it like 3 weeks ago, so I don't know what order the episode. The pilot episode's mostly just him assembling the crew.
Yeah.
But it's a good show. I recommend it. So love Colin Farrell, love Max von Sydow. Tom Cruise is, he's very interesting. It's tough because speaking of when he's there, he's good. Tom Cruise, when he shows up, he shows up.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't. He's one of those actors. It's like him and like George Clooney and people who it's like when they're in the role, you can't just not see them. when I watch Minority Report, I'm not like, here is John Anderton, this sad
Yeah, you
broken
just
man.
see Tom
I just see
Cruise.
Tom Cruise, and it's like
Same thing with, yeah, you're all right.
he's doing a good job. He's different in this movie than he is in other movies, but
I think he's so crazy and intense in real life that I think it's hard to. I feel like all the characters that he does are pretty much very close, like Vanilla Sky.
Yeah,
very close to him.
The only movie he's ever been in where he was just wildly different is
Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder, exactly.
I didn't even think you were going to say that. I was saying that as a joke.
Well, no, he's like a weird character. He's doing like character work in that movie, which he never does because he's always a leading man. Vanilla Sky, but the thing is, he's so bankable and good. I mean, Live, Die, Repeat, or Edge of Tomorrow, whichever version. That movie's literally got two different titles. It's ridiculous, but whatever you want to call it, that movie's fucking great.
What movie?
Edge of Tomorrow, or. So, I don't even know what it's like. When it came out, it was originally called like Live, Die, Repeat, and then they renamed it Edge of Tomorrow, and then it like bombed for some reason. Even though it's really good, they were like, it's Live, Die, Repeat again, I guess. But it's a movie where they're at war with like these crazy space creatures, and it's like a Groundhog's Day situation. Like every time he dies, he gets reset.
Oh, okay, I think I've heard of it. I never saw it though.
It's really good. But it also came out at like the exact same time that like that Oblivion movie came out, which is like really bad. So it's easy to get. But I mean, these days you almost only see him in like Mission Impossible, and like that's about it.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's too much of a star. You can't just like stick him in anything anymore.
Well, I think after his divorce, he kind of messed him up a little bit.
He's great in this movie. He's great. He's great in action movies. He's one of the best running actors of all time. I mean, and he's good. And this is definitely his heyday. Like the late 90s, early 2000s is like Tom Cruise is dominating everything. And I'm sure I didn't really look up the box office numbers, but I watched a couple like reviews after the movie, and it was Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg teaming up. And it's like, yeah, that would be a big deal, actually. Yeah. Like I'm sure this movie did numbers, but I just want to get ahead of it. Like, I respect Tom Cruise as an actor. You want to talk, speaking of like separating the art from the artist. Yeah. I know in real life he's like a maniac and a Scientologist and all that other stuff, but like,
aren't we all?
I don't know if we're all Scientologists, but yeah, we are all, I'm sure we're all maniacs in our own way, but I like him, and I like him in this role. It's just hard for me to like see the character, where it's like, and Colin Farrell suffers from that a little bit in this movie too, where it's like, oh, it's Colin Farrell. I've since seen Colin Farrell like especially in like The Lobster and like Sacred Deer, like in Yorgos Lanthimos movies, he's like completely different. But yeah, I was having trouble in this movie trying to figure out like if he was doing an accent or not, like because he's doing a very, very light
Colin Farrell.
Yeah,
he's Irish.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course I know he's Irish, but in some movies, in some movies he Americans it up a little bit.
Oh, like a New York accent, or
but
Boston.
But I was like, he's not doing like a full American accent, but he's doing a much. He was in this movie.
He just sounded Midwestern.
Yeah, at some point he's like, yeah, my father was shot on the church steps in Dublin. Or I was like, okay, so you are Irish in this movie. Yeah. It's just he's doing a very, very.
Is he Irish?
He's doing a very light Irish accent. It's like very minimal.
I have to watch it again.
I think they didn't want him to like just use his normal voice because he's like supposed to be American FBI agent guy, and so he couldn't just be like, but Jesus, I'm here to see the pre-crime or whatever. Like pour shots all around. I love when he just gets to be Irish in movies too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I loved. I forgot he was in the movie, but he shows up so early. I was like, yes, Colin Farrell's in this movie. That's great. But yeah, that's Tom Cruise saves the day, solves world hunger. Not really though. We'll get to it, but the movie has like an ending that I found like I found it to be. I could see a lot of different people feeling a lot of different ways about it, and I'll get into how I felt about it when we get there. But let's move on to my preconceived notions.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what little I knew about the movie going in. And you can say, if there's any big holes where you're like, well, you didn't know this going in? Like, feel free to check me on it. Tom Cruise is in the movie, obviously. I always knew it was a Tom Cruise movie.
I was gonna say, like, is that what you didn't know?
This is what I did
This is
know.
what you did know.
This is
Okay.
my preconceived notion. So going into the movie, I'm like, this is a Tom Cruise movie. I didn't know it was a Spielberg movie,
Yeah, I didn't.
which is
either.
huge.
And I've seen it a million times.
And I knew Colin Farrell was in it, but I did kind of forget that he was in it. I guess I assumed, I didn't know it took place in the future. I'm like, there's so many like sci-fi elements to it. I'm like, it's got to take place in the future. I had no idea how far in the future. And they don't even drop how far. And it's very late in the movie where they finally give you an actual date.
No, they don't.
Huh?
I thought they did it earlier in the movie.
There's a newspaper really early
yeah,
on
I
in the
know what
movie,
you're
and I'm
talking
sure they have the date on it, and I probably missed it. But it wasn't like I don't have the date on here until Tom Cruise.
I know exactly when you're talking about. Yeah, they don't show the date until then.
He's getting ready to infiltrate the pre-crime division, and like he's with that tour group, and he like injects the face melty thing. The tour guide's like, up until 2046, blah blah blah, and then 9 years later this. I was like, okay, so it's like 2054.
There's actually a newspaper when he's on the train.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So,
I was like, I should have been paying more attention to that. I just thought for sure with these kind of movies, they almost always will just have some chyron at some point where they're just like 2054 or whatever. But they like, for a while, I was like, are they leaving like the year like really ambiguous? I'm having trouble like figuring out what year this is.
next year, flying cars.
Well, it's like it's one of those things where it's like it's a 2002 movie. I could have seen them thinking that we would have been this far. Like, there's a lot of movies that like hard called us having flying cars in like the 2000s, and it's like, nope. Are flying cars even a good idea though? Probably not.
No, that's not. Well, these aren't technically flying cars. Well, I guess there's flying vehicles, but it's a bit off-putting.
I knew that it was like some sort of crime thing. Like, I knew the basic premise of the movie was like they can predict crimes, and Tom Cruise stops crimes before they happen. So I did know that going into the movie, and I knew for some reason that the crimes were predicted by psychics. So I was like trying to like going into it. I was like, okay, so there's like all this sci-fi stuff, but then there's also psychics, which to me is almost more mystical.
Yeah.
And I do credit the movie a little bit. There's a brief moment where it's almost like the movie feels like it needs to acknowledge it, where it's like, they're like psychics. They're almost like it's proof that the divine is real. And, you know, you call this place a temple and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I was like, okay.
They're
So,
like oracles.
because for me, I'm like, are you like heavily implying that like this is all scientific, or is there something mystical going on here, or what is happening? And they like touch on it a little bit, but they leave it pretty ambiguous, which is fine, you know. And they even like later down the line, like sort of explain how they develop their powers. So like, yeah, their parents were hooked on like this neuron
Meth.
drug, and like they're like drug babies or whatever, which is
Yeah.
interesting. Tom Cruise goes on the run, which is like, of course he does. Like, there's a couple
Is there a movie where he's not on the run?
famous running man, Tom Cruise. And I knew it was a sci-fi movie. I will say, like I said, going into it, I thought it was like a lot more like hard, dark, dramatic sci-fi. I wasn't expecting some of the lighter elements.
Yeah.
When the guys on the jetpacks come down, and like the guy like stumbles and shit and like kicks one of them, and he kind of like flies off. I was like, oh, this is kind of comedic, and I was like, I'm seeing this little Spielberg.
Yeah.
And the jetpack, he's wrestling with them, and like the flames go over the burgers and like cook the
Yeah.
burgers. I was like, okay. But that's about it. It's very interesting that you picked this movie, because like it's not a movie I feel like people bring up in casual conversation that much. Not a movie I certainly.
I didn't want to like say something obvious. Like, I don't know. What's something obvious?
Like The Godfather
Yeah.
or Citizen Kane has been
Or Jurassic Park.
sure.
I don't know. Jurassic Park would be cool to talk about. Yeah, I just want. Yeah, a lot of people don't talk about Minority Report.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent choice. It's a movie, like I said, it's one of Steven Spielberg's. Like,
A lot of people our ages didn't see it because I was a little young to be watching.
yeah, definitely. Like, I doubt that it's an R-rated movie. I didn't check what the rating
it. Oh,
was,
they cut
but
eyeballs out.
but they don't like show it. Like, Steven Spielberg's pretty good about making PG-13 stuff,
Very true.
but yeah, and there's no like super. They get around the violence by like having like sonic guns and
Yeah.
halos and I don't think there's any nudity. There's not a lot of blood. I guess you do, but yeah, I guess you're right. You
It's
do.
PG-13.
Yeah, you just see eyeballs rolling around. I would have guessed that it was PG-13. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not something that like was on my radar when I was a kid.
I mean, 16 Candles is PG-13, and you see boobs.
Yeah.
Sorry, I saw that the other day at the drive-in.
Oh, I tell a lot of people that apparently it's where I get my name from, Jake Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so let's get into the movie. So like I said in my summary, opens up with this big elaborate sequence where Tom Cruise they catch a case. This guy is going to find out that his wife is sleeping with another guy, and he's going to stab him to death with scissors.
It's the worst weapon you could have grabbed.
They're very sharp scissors. Like that's another thing that I have questions about with this world. There's little moments where it's like it feels like there's so many details that have been thought of. Like this is futuristic. This is futuristic. But then there'll be like these weird analog things where it's like, but we're like cutting the eyes out of this like cardboard Lincoln with these super scissors. And there's a moment like later.
They're not even nice scissors. They're like the old silver scissors, like that stay in the drawer and like nobody ever uses.
Yeah. It's like they don't even cut well. Like scissors that sharp don't even actually like cut that well.
They stick when you try to open it. Yeah.
But it's a very jarring way to open up a movie because it starts with the vision that the psychics are having, the precogs as they call them. And so you're getting like flashes and like as someone who's never like seen the movie before, I'm just like sitting there like, oh, okay, well, we're just like, what is happening? Like, and I'm not like, oh, I have no idea what's going on, but it's like, it was just like, oh, they were just opening with these like, and it's very like distorted and weird and grainy. I was like, this is a daring way to open the movie.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, so he's like at his like station. He's got this big editing bay. It's just funny because like the way it looks like a timeline and like you would edit video or whatever. And he's just like swiping. And I'm trying to imagine like what, I want to know what the direction was. And I want to know what Tom Cruise was actually looking at when they were recording.
Whoever did the editing of the videos on top of him doing did a great job.
Yeah.
Because like it really looks like he's doing that stuff with his hands.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have a comment about this scene and every scene that they use that. Imagine this is what police officers and detectives did to use. Imagine how frustrated and pissed off they'd get when they like do this. They're like, no, do this. No, do that. Because like technology is never that perfect. To where like, yeah. It's like I have a Kinect. It does not do exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, like visceral way to like throw videos around and stuff. And it's like, I'm curious, again, like credit to Tom Cruise as an actor. And the one thing that should be said about this movie is like, I watched a review that was like, and the CGI just still holds up to this day. And I was like, not really. There's some especially questionable parts, but the point that I think they were trying to make was Spielberg's very good at integrating the CGI into his world. They're on a set. It's not like they're in Tom Cruise isn't in a room that's just an empty green room waving his arms.
Yeah.
There's sets, there's stuff around them. They built everything like the scene where the spiders are going in and scanning everybody's eyes. Like the set is real. It's just the spiders that are CG. When you see the ship descend, the playground is real, the buildings are real, and you've just inserted the ship. It makes it feel more part of the world. And that is something I think Spielberg should be commended for. And I think it's something that does make the CGI not be nearly as gnarly as it could be. But to say that it like fully holds up, it is very good for 2002 CGI.
Great for 2002.
But having said that, it's not, there's part, especially like when he's with the plants that are like attacking him and stuff. I was like, this is, but the thing is like, I'm not a CGI snob. I don't care. I'm not like, it's not like taking me out of the movie.
I am.
CGI
will ruin a movie for me. Unless you're watching like an old movie, like 70s, 80s, then it's just like that. It's just part of the charm.
So for
now
you,
I'm like,
for you,
what is that?
Watching this again, like how does the CG make you feel then? Like if it does take you out of the movie, or were you watching it like, oh man, this is like really rough?
Well, the scene where he's on the jetpack of the other guy and they're going through that like silver tube and then they show the camera. That part bothers me because you can tell that they're being CG'd into a tube with fire. Like, I'm just like, it's like falling scenes for me where it's just like, obviously they're laying on the ground, waving their arms and legs. Like, I just can't. It just ruins it. It makes it nicer that the movie does have like comedic effects. Like, it's supposed to be a little, I don't know if it's supposed to be a little funny, but I think it's hilarious. To me, comedy all the way. Like, if I were to put it in Netflix, I'd put it in comedies.
Wow. That's a bold statement.
He chases eyeballs down a hallway.
That part is definitely...
He eats a moldy sandwich.
I think you could make a strong argument for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dark comedies.
Dark comedy. Yeah. Sci-fi comedy. Yeah. There's definitely like... That's a good point. That being said, I think all the fake video computer technology looks great.
Yeah.
Him swiping. They do the whole thing.
They did a great job at that. Yeah, I will say that. That was beautifully... I'm not even going to give Tom Cruise that credit. The editor, whoever did that, I love you.
Declaration of love.
Yeah.
So he saves this lady. We get our first like sort of tip of like, hey, maybe things are. They're very early on when the guy's being dragged away. He's like, I wasn't going to kill her. I wouldn't have done it or whatever. And you get like a. For me,
foreshadowing.
Yeah, for me, it's like a very brief. Hey, maybe there are some like very big moral questions about pre-crime and all that, where you're arresting people for things they technically haven't done. And one of the things that I like about the movie, but also don't like about the movie, is they do bring those questions up. They somewhat address them, but it's also clearly not the movie's focal point. They don't spend a lot of time like coming up with, like, I'm not even looking for the movie to like provide me with the answers to those questions, but I feel like it doesn't spend a lot of time pondering it either. There's flashes and stuff, and like ultimately,
I don't think they go over it at all until the end. They were like, it's not even the whole point of the story changes right at the last 5 seconds. Like at first it was just solving a murder, and then all of a sudden it's it's because pre-crime's bad. And I'm like, what about the murder? What about your son? What about Anne Lively? I don't think that flowed really well. It's like the whole movie changed at the end.
Yeah, it when I first started the movie, the one thing I do is like I'll check like how long it is. It's like, okay, so this movie's like, wow, it's like 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and like
for no reason.
Yeah, because the thing is like when it hits like there's a moment when like I paused it to like go get a drink or something, and there was still an hour left in the movie, and I was like, there's an hour left in this movie. Like he's like literally he's got Agatha. They're gonna go figure out the crime that was set up at the beginning. How can there be a whole nother hour of this movie? Yeah. And there is, and it's not like bad, but definitely like you could trim some fat off this movie for sure. But he comes back. Colin Farrell's all like giving him shit. Like, he's basically like, how can you arrest people for stuff that they didn't do? And they do a very famous scene of like,
well, I don't think he's giving him shit because I think he wants that job. I think he's just trying to make John Anderton look bad. He's trying to catch him up, trying to slip up a little bit. Because they even say several times throughout the movie, well, not several, maybe like 2 or 3 times, that he wants that job. That is what he wants to do.
Well, presumably, like when they go national, he'll be like maybe like heading up the overseeing the national thing. So yeah, you're right. There's a competitive edge to it, and he does part of that. One of the things that does tip him a little bit into bad guy territory, even though he kind of swings back around towards the end, is like there's definitely like mild glee he's getting in chasing Tom Cruise, where he's just like, it's like this guy, like when he raids his apartment and finds the drugs, he's just like, I fucking got you.
What an invasion of privacy. That scene bothered me so bad.
But I mean, that's the thing, is that's the world they're living in. Like you can have your everyone gets their eyes scanned. There's no privacy. People will literally bust into your house if you even think about murdering somebody. That's one of the big
I would have died. I'd be dead, or I'd have the halo on. I'd be in their quarters, like.
But there's something about the halo something I didn't even think of but there's apparently like what do you call it when somebody has like a theory about a movie?
Conspiracy?
Maybe not a conspiracy theory, but like
I would just call it a theory about a movie. Fan theory? Fan
theory. Yes, exactly. Fan theory. There's a fan theory of the movie that people think that when he gets put away, that there's a chance that maybe the rest of the movie is his imagination. But I didn't read it that way. I think...
Oh, because there is a part where somebody says that they're living out their wildest dreams, or all their dreams are coming true.
Which it's another...
Why'd you have to do that? You fucked up the whole movie for me.
I will say that
it makes sense why it's such a happy ending. Well, not happy ending, but
because that's the thing with Total Recall as well. You said you've never seen it, but the whole thing with Total Recall is they go to put this headset on him so that he can live out this fantasy, and then in the movie, it seems like right before they put the headset on, these like agents bust in and like attack him, and he gets caught up in this wild adventure. But the big thing with Total Recall is like, is this really happening, or is all of what we're seeing a fantasy?
And I hate movies like that.
But for me, I think that there's too many questions that pop up before he gets haloed in this movie. It's not like he gets haloed and then you find out that there was somebody behind everything and he solves it. Somebody set him up.
Yeah.
And then he gets haloed, and then we're still resolving that same conflict. So I personally don't subscribe to the idea that he's just imagining the happy ending.
It honestly couldn't have, because how would he dream about his ex-wife coming there? Like, she's the one who... I guess he could. Yeah.
But...
I don't know. I don't like it.
I definitely would choose not to read that movie that way, but people like spinning stuff like that. Like everybody loves a good Jacob's Ladder scenario, as they call it on How Did This Get Made? Jacob's Ladder, a movie very infamously, this guy like seems like he's slowly losing his mind. You find out at the end of the movie, like the very beginning of the movie, he died, and everything we're seeing is like his death visions or whatever.
I'm not watching that.
It's an interesting movie.
Inception, that messed with my mind. I like Doctor Who. Sometimes it just hurts my head a little bit. I don't like it.
There's a good scene though where Tom Cruise rolls a ball and Colin Farrell catches it, and he's like, why'd you catch the ball? He's like, it was gonna fall. He's like, but it didn't. And he's like, yeah, because I caught it. And he's like, so you changed it, but if you hadn't caught it, you knew it was still going to fall. Like, there's this whole like philosophical...
because he was saying, Colin Farrell's character was saying like, how do you know they're going to actually do the murder? And so how did you know that the ball could have not fallen? You don't know.
It's Tom Cruise doing like a real like gotcha moment. Yeah. It's a great scene. I like that little scene.
And his teammates were pretty much like, oh.
Exactly.
Got him. I kept looking over at them to make him go... None of them did that.
I felt bad because Neil McDonough is like the main guy that's like coming after him throughout the movie.
The blonde guy.
Yeah, and he's like, he's like in Captain America, and like he's very recognizable.
Is he in Fight Club? No, I'm thinking of Jared Leto.
Oh, okay.
He blonde eyebrows.
I know what you're talking about. But I felt bad because they seem like, he's another guy who a lot of times plays a bad guy. And so I was like, so this is going to be the guy that's like chasing Tom Cruise, but they seem like good friends at the beginning, and he seems like kind of sad that he's got to chase him. But they do. And
they still do. They don't give him a chance.
Let's see here. Yeah.
Which honestly, if you think about it, it's kind of their fault, because if they wouldn't have chased him, then he wouldn't have wanted to find out who this guy was so much. And maybe they could have all gone there and like maybe got the other guy and interviewed him. Like, why? Because honestly, if they knew him so well, they would know the only reason he would kill somebody is because something to do with his son. Sure. Like
there's a handful of parts of this movie that you can poke little logic holes. Like I was going to get into it later, but two random questions I have for this movie are going back to the scissors thing. There's a moment where Colin Farrell's like, I'm in charge here, and it's like he's like I get to go see the psychics if I want, and they're like, says who? And he's like, I have a warrant, and he pulls out a fucking paper warrant,
a piece of paper folded up horribly. And this is 2054. There's not flying cars, but there's cars like on that go sideways on a building and stuff like that.
They're all clearly
like,
automated. Like nobody's
like
actually driving.
Jetpacks. Oh, but your warrant's on a piece of paper.
Like it really read like the prop department like just fucked up that day, and they're like, I don't know, man. Just here's a piece of paper.
I mean, they have clear. What are those called? The plug-in.
Yeah, they have like these clear like flash drive things that they just like jam into shit, and it's like.
Why is there flash drives? Now, like being at 2020, who like.
The paper thing I had questions about, and I had I was getting into I still at this point didn't know what year it was, and so they're trying to figure out where the house is that they're going to find the murder. There's like people riding around on horses. I was like, what the fuck? What year is it? Like, are they riding around in carriages and shit? But then you see future cars later, so I don't know what was up with that. I guess some people have horses.
Oh, when they said that actual playgrounds were going extinct or something like that. There's only three playgrounds in the area. Like, I know where they're at. I'm like, what? Why? Are there kids? There's obviously kids in the future. Why aren't there playgrounds? Where are they playing at?
They just play in like their virtual computer lands. No one goes outside anymore. Might get run over by a robot car. And so we meet the precogs. There's the boy twins, and then there's the more important precog is Agatha, the female precog. Mm-hmm. It's hinted and then confirmed that she's the strongest one. She's the one that seems
obviously she's a woman. Yeah,
exactly. Like the doctor even like makes a crack about it. Like when he's there, he's like, which one's the strongest one? He's like, the woman, obviously. I was like, oh, fair enough.
You really have to ask. The twins or the one that's not a twin? Which one do you think is the strongest?
But it's a lot of, you get a lot of fun, like, and I respect the movie too, where I was like, what kind of existence is this? And they get into it more, like, I guess. We'll get there. So they do like a commercial for the pre-crime, really good, like little world, but it's like vote yes on the April 22nd.
Can I say something?
Sure.
How annoying would that be to live in a world where everywhere you go, you had vocalized advertising everywhere?
It would
like they're all talking and like, and they all know your name.
Hey, John Anderton, you look like you could use a beer.
Oh, that was my favorite part. Yeah, probably could. Taylor Guy, you could. I would be a raging alcoholic. Taylor Guy, you look like you could use a beer. I do, don't I?
I don't think
I could go for a beer.
I don't think I could handle being targeted. I even feel like there's something about like my name. Like people don't use my name. Like people don't use people's names in general a lot. Like
people use my name all the time.
Okay, I just feel like when I hear like
not in good ways. A lot of people don't like me. You either love me or you hate me. I don't know why.
Very, very polarizing figure.
Yeah. I could be a bitch sometimes. Or I could be a great person. All depends on who you're talking to.
But Tom Cruise meets his blind drug dealer. Who like...
I forgot that I had seen this movie. Like I was listening to a news story like, ooh, what happens next? Sorry.
Well, having only seen this movie for the first time, this part was something that I guess I thought way too hard about. Because I was like, because like I can't remember if in the very first scene they don't say that the precogs only see murders. I think they maybe mention that later. They're like, what about like rapes and blah blah blah, and it's like, no, it's only murder. Because at this point, when
they're only programmed.
Yeah, when Tom Cruise goes to buy the drugs, I was like, oh, his dealer's blind, so that I was like thinking way too hard. I was like, the dealer can't see Tom Cruise, so the precogs can't use the guy's mind to trace Tom Cruise to buying the drugs because he's committing a crime. But it turns out none of that matters. It's all just more metaphorical anyway. It's like, he's blind because you got to see. Well,
no, he's blind because he wants to be under the radar. He doesn't want his eyes to be scanned.
Sure, okay.
Because that's why he doesn't want to have, like what we were just talking about a second ago. He doesn't want to go somewhere and be like, I don't know.
Exactly.
John Doe, you blah, blah, blah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't know why that flew over my head.
Because they do mention, I think director, I can't remember his name. Lamar. What is... Okay, anyways.
Lamar is a very weird name for an old white man.
An old white man. Like, British guy. Isn't he British?
Max von Sydow.
But oh God, my brain left me.
But no, I'm glad you said
Yeah.
that. Because they don't establish the eye scan stuff till later. So at the time, but no, of course, yeah. If you're like a criminal, not having eyes is actually kind of an advantage.
Yeah.
I will say his CGI eye sockets look fucking terrible.
Gross. They looked so gross.
They look gross, but they also look bad.
Yeah.
He goes.
I remember what I was gonna say. So like the reason why I never thought that is because there is a moment where when he's talking to Lamar, Lamar says, if they find out what you're doing, they'll put a camera on you at all times.
Okay.
So a body cam or something like that. So
Yeah.
and that's how they would find out, I guess. I don't know.
That makes sense. He goes home, watches memories. We find out, oh, he's got a dead son. I was like, okay, he's got a sad backstory. At first, I thought it was like heavily implying that his wife was dead too. Like I was like, oh, his wife and son got killed in some accident. I feel like it's not until much later where they're like, no, she's not dead. She just divorced him and she lives away from him. And then when she gets visited by Colin Farrell later, she's very like defensive about him. She's like, he's a good guy. Maybe I shouldn't even have divorced him, but I just kind of got sick of him. So
he's a good guy. I just can't look at his face. He smells like my son for some odd reason. I was like, what? The smell of him reminds me. Why does the smell of him remind you of your 6-year-old son?
Smells like chlorine.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, this is where the paper warrant happens at work the next day. At this point, I noted that everything was glowy. And I got to say, I appreciate the angle that they were going for. I don't think I'm a fan I don't think I'm fully a fan of the way this movie looks. It's very
bright.
It's very unique and it's interesting, but I found it to be a little grating after a while. Where it's just like some of the grittier moments where things aren't glowy actually look great. Like when has his eye bandages on and he's in that apartment.
Scene.
That set looks great. But like a lot of the stuff at the crime division to me just looks like shit.
Yeah.
And
it's supposed to be futuristic and bright and clean and
well, that was apparently the thing is like they wanted to look bright, but they also wanted to look like gritty because it's like they were trying to go for this angle where it's like it's the future, but it's like
we don't have
like it's still
technology anymore.
It's like this technology is actually like old technology. Like there's like grittiness to it. There's like broken down streets and shittiness and stuff in the corners and like dilapidated buildings that have been abandoned for decades and shit. And it's like, I mean, but I think that's also why that set that he's recovering his eyes from his eye surgery and works pretty well because it's like that whole building is like decrepit and nasty and but still looks a little futury in a way. It's good. They go meet the precogs. We find out that they have like this creepy handler who like clearly is in love with Agatha. It's just
I think he's in love with all three of them.
I think, you know what? I think that's a good theory.
Because he was talking to one of the other ones.
I feel like when nobody else is around, he puts things in their mouths.
Oh, gosh.
I did get a big kick out of the scene where he's like talking to Agatha and complaining about his mom. He's like, she won't even let me get a dog. I take such good care of you guys, and she won't even let me get a dog. It's ridiculous. I hate her new boyfriend. Whatever. I was like, this guy is.
Here's my thing. I think her grabbing his hand triggered all of it.
I mean, she certainly sets like the chain of events in motion, like because this is before he catches his own crime.
Yeah.
So she grabs him. It's like she knows.
Because they tell them, don't touch the handler, don't touch them because you'll put too much of an implant on them.
Yeah.
Or imprint on them. So I feel like that might have started because the only reason why he went to kill this guy is because of her.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
if he would have never went in there, it never would have happened.
Oh, I think that's a great theory. And I think that, and you find out later, I didn't know at the time, like, I definitely, especially having never seen it before, I definitely didn't foresee him breaking her out and them like, I thought she was going to be in the tank until the very end of the movie when I presumed they were going to get released at some point. Yeah. But like, I did not see I got to break her out and go on the run with her. And I have a lot of questions about like, if she's been in this milk bath for like 6 years, she shouldn't even be able to walk. Like, well, she shouldn't even, like the fact that like she's not moving well, but she's still got like the use of her legs enough to where she can like. I was like, there's
Stand,
no
walk.
I think they're just hinting at like some sci-fi bullshit. Like they're just like keeping their like I don't know. Maybe the guy.
Maybe they did exercises with them.
It's possible.
They get in the pool, move around,
Or maybe
legs
the
around.
milk nutrients like really like keep you like fit.
I think it's salt. I think it's a salt tank, kind of like a what are those called?
Oh, like a deprivation tank.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like that.
Sure.
I don't know. Who knows?
They never like specify.
I'm not a
it.
scientist.
They just are like, yeah, it's like some nutrients or whatever. It's fine.
Imagine the first time you eat a cheeseburger in your life. like they're stuck, probably getting feeding tube stuff, and like they're out, finally escaped, and they eat a cheeseburger. Like, oh, that'd be a great feeling.
Okay. So yeah, Agatha starts re-envisioning the Anne. What's her name?
And Lively.
And she re-envisions the Anne Lively death, and she's like, "Do you see?" She grabs Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is like, "What the fuck's going on?" He goes down to the jail where they keep all the prisoners in Matrix style, like fucking headgear. Like apparently, like it's like heavily implied that they're put into like comas and like dream states or whatever. And like I can't tell if it's like they're saying they're being mentally tortured or if they're like actually being like placated and like getting to imagine good things. Like I don't on the outside outside of the tank.
It's the murder.
It's showing the murder, and I was like, is that like their identifier? Like this is the murder they were going to do, and is that we're only seeing that on the outside, or is it like saying that like these people are just in the tanks, like being forced to relive the murder like over and over and over and over? And so I don't. And at the very end of the movie, it's like everyone that was put in prison was released, and so I was like, what was that like? You just like were like in some dream state for 6 years, and they're just like, hey, wake up. Go be free now.
Imagine the murder rate after they ended it like quadruples in like 1 hour.
Well, I mean, it would like they theoretically had 0 murders.
No, I'm saying like when it ended.
Well, no, I'm saying like right before it ended, they were having 0 murders. So literally even 1 murder is like exponentially increasing the murder rate. The murder rate would be like insane.
Another thing is, how long were they planning on keeping those people like that? Like forever? What's the point? Just kill them. Like seriously, they're literally a waste of. If you're going to be keeping them in this high, probably very expensive facility to keep them in dreamlike state, why not just kill them?
Because private prisons generate money. I'm not going to get into my whole prison thing.
I was going to say, but they're not doing anything. They're not like making license plates.
That's true.
They're literally in like... Kill them all.
They are stacking them on top of each other, though. So they are saving a lot of space. But yeah, Tim Blake Nelson is essentially the prison warden. He's a great actor, good character actor.
Oh, yeah.
There's a million good character actors in this movie, like Peter Stormare and Tim Blake Nelson. And
he's in Holes.
Yeah, he's the jerk that's always got the sunscreen on his nose that Zero smashes with a shovel. He's in a lot of Coen Brothers movies too. Mm-hmm. Most recently, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Oh, I watched that. I got blackout.
He plays Buster Scruggs. So basically, Colin Farrell starts poking around this old murder, which we don't realize at the time is actually what is setting up this chain of events. It finally comes to a head towards the very end of the movie. He goes and visits Lamar, and he's like, "I'm looking into this murder," and Lamar's like, "Oh, weird. I'm sure."
What was
like
that sound?
I think it was just a door shutting.
Okay, sorry, it scared that ever living daylights out of me. Oh, my whole body vibrated. Whew. Okay, moving on. Sorry.
So we'll find out later that visiting Lamar and telling him that he was doing this was a very bad idea. But yeah, I think this is the first scene we see Lamar too. He's just like, "Oh, you think we'd find the cure for the common cold at this point?" So the next day at work, he basically is like, Tom Cruise, you gotta like keep your head down, or Colin Farrell's gonna nail your ass to the wall. I basically know you've been doing drugs. You probably should stop. The next day, Tom Cruise catches his own case. It comes up, he's going through the routine, and when it reveals the face of the murderer, it's him. And he's like, "Oh shit."
Dun, dun, dun.
tank guy's like, I like you. I'll give you 2 minutes to run.
Do you really like a person if you're only giving them 2 minutes? Like, imagine how long and he's not even running. He's just like just fast walking his way out.
There's a great moment.
I don't think anybody were to question why, what's his name? John Anderton?
John Anderton.
Why John Anderton would be running through. Like, he runs like every other time when there's a case. Like, just run. Like, you have 2 minutes.
I love the acting from the old lady that, like, whenever he catches a crime, there's like these two witnesses that like pop up. He's like, it's basically like this judge and this like lawyer, prosecutor lady who they like oversee the crimes. And she's like, John, I don't understand what I'm looking at. He's just like, he like hangs up on her.
I laughed at that part. He's just like, doesn't even like.
But there's a great scene where Colin Farrell catches him in the elevator, and Colin Farrell had been snooping around his house. That's a scene I kind of accidentally skipped, but he found out that he's been doing drugs. And he's like, I'm on to you. He's like, I know what you did. And Tom Cruise is like, shit, does he know that
You set me up.
He thinks he's been set up by Colin Farrell. He's like, he also thinks like Colin Farrell's talking about the murder that he just caught. And there's a great moment where he pulls his gun out, and Colin Farrell's like, you're not going to kill me. The psychics would have predicted it. And the alarm goes off, and there's this. There's a great moment, a great piece of acting from Colin Farrell where he hears the alarm, goes, "Did they just witness my murder? Oh fuck, is this guy about to murder me?" And you see it all on his face, and he's just like, "Holy shit!" And like he's kind of like Tom Cruise is just like, and like leaves out the elevator, and Colin Farrell's like frozen, like, I just about died.
Probably pissed himself. like really think about that. Like, if that were to happen to you, you're not going to kill me. They would have witnessed it. And then the alarm goes off. Like, I would have just pissed myself right there.
Which is funny because I'm very sad about this, but he dies later in the movie. And he takes his death.
I was rooting for him too.
I know.
I've seen the movie a million times and I still root for him. Like, yeah, he's going to catch him.
He went to the exact wrong person that he should have went to, though. It was like, he's literally like explaining. To me, like, I thought he was like explaining, like, I know it was you, but then he like still seems like kind of surprised when Lamar shoots him.
He was confused.
But then he like kisses his little amulet and then dies. And I was like, no, Colin. But so get a big long action sequence. Tom Cruise is leaping on cars. Lamar tells him to come in, but Tom Cruise doesn't, which we'll find out later was actually a good decision by Tom.
So smart. Well, that would have been a stupid decision. Obviously, everybody went there first.
Yeah.
When they were looking for Tom Cruise, they were like, let's go to Lamar's house.
He's on the run. That's where we get the personalized ads that we talked about. We already mentioned the jetpack fight, but
I hate that scene. I don't know why. It's just it's too campy. It's too silly.
Like there's the moment when the guy first lands, he stumbles, and there's a whole exchange where Tom Cruise is like, rough landing there. He's like, it's my fucking knees, man. Like they're giving out on me. He's just like, yep, we're getting old. And they bust out what they call the sick.
I feel like that's an ad lib. Like I feel like they ad libbed that whole part because like I feel like he landed and probably just Tom Cruise was like, rough landing, huh?
I don't know. Tom Cruise really strikes me as like I read what's on the page and I don't ever deter from that. But I could see that guy being like, it's very like a casual jokey. Like Spielberg's pretty good about like when he's directing, he'll like change things on the fly. Like Jaws very infamously was like a lot of that stuff was like they were coming up with it on the day or the day before.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good call by you, like to notice that the tone of that. But I didn't love the jetpack fight's like the first like real big fight scene, and I was like, this is really goofy. I don't think the physics are checking out on any of this. Like when he's kicking them, like I'm like the force of your kick.
He would have burned his leg so many times when he was hanging on that other jetpack. Like you can even see the CGI fire like going through his leg. Like how is that not hurting him?
I do like a little hero moment that they give him though, where he takes the guy's jetpack off, and the guy's like hanging on, and he doesn't let go of him until he's just like, "You got it,
you got a grip, you got a grip."
He's like, and he's like, "Okay," like it's like
he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, it's like he's a good guy, but he does completely trash multiple people's homes through this chase.
Does he, or do the cops do that?
Fair enough.
Who has the jetpacks here, Jake?
I would blame the cops, but I always blame the cops.
Yeah.
ACAB and all that. But it immediately rolls into another action scene where Colin Farrell pulls up on him. They have a fight in the car parts, like a car factory.
Oh, yeah.
They introduce a lot of fun, like, text, like they have what they call the 6 sticks. If they poke you with them, it makes you puke or whatever.
Oh, the 6 sticks.
Yeah.
I thought you said sick dicks.
I'm sure they all have sick dicks.
When they poke you in the mouth, they make you puke. Been there.
I think that's what the tech is doing to the psychics, but
Yeah.
but no, they have like these.
Do they call them 6 sticks?
Yeah, they call them 6 sticks. Like they drop it multiple times because
What a weird.
when they have him cornered.
What a weird weapon. Like, just have. I thought they were. Honestly, I thought they were cow prods. No, what are they called? Cattle.
Yeah, like tasers, like fancy tasers.
I thought he just threw up because he jabbed him in the throat with it. Like, I think somebody would throw up.
It's like there's a moment. It must be based off a real thing because
Epic Hack probably in it.
Because there's a moment in Kick-Ass 2 where she has a stick and she pokes a girl in school with it and makes her throw up.
Yeah.
And so it must be based on something, which, I mean, respect to the cops for having like non-lethal weapons in this, not in real life, but in the Minority Report world. It's like, it's good that they default to like sonic guns and like trying not to murder people and then they halo you or whatever.
Yeah, they'll still probably aim at the head.
But in the car factory scene, Tom Cruise gets his hand on the sonic shotgun. This crazy
that was so cool. The other guy who was using it made it look so lame. But then like Tom Cruise has it and he's like, I was like, I want that gun.
Yeah, he makes it look really cool. It looks like it's like kind of like an old school cowboy gun where you can like spin it and shit, but he just like wheels it and just like it
looks like one of those party toys, that you shake it and it makes the sound like woo. He's just like spinning it like that. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Him and Colin Farrell have a fist fight.
Yeah, Colin Farrell's out to kill him. Like that scene, like he's like trying to kick him off this platform. Like, why he would have died.
It almost seemed like he was gonna die because he gets pinned in the car and they like build on top of him. And then another touch to the goofiness, the car like comes out.
Yeah.
It's been built, and then he pokes his head up and then just drives off, and they're like, "You!" and they like run after him, and it's just like, okay. So he visits Dr. Hinneman. We get a bunch of exposition about how the psychics were created. There's a bunch of goofy plant CGI.
I didn't like that part.
It's fine. She's the actor, not to disparage her. I think it's maybe just because of the material she's being forced to deliver, but she's playing the character like she's maybe a little bit unhinged, but she's like
mad scientist vibes.
And then towards the end of it, she like kisses Tom Cruise on the mouth.
That made me so uncomfortable.
It's like, why? Tom Cruise has a look on his face like he wasn't expecting it. Like in real life.
Yeah, like
the actor just made a choice in that moment.
You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Like after the scene was like somebody said cut, you'll be hearing from my lawyer.
Tom Cruise looks horrified. Back with the cops, Colin Farrell's like, I'm going to track down Laura. He goes to visit Laura.
I don't know.
I have L.A.
The bitch who left him.
You get the backstory between like what happened with them. Tom Cruise goes to this Russian eye doctor, Peter Stormare, and in a scene that goes nowhere. It's very tense while it's happening.
Yeah.
He like injects Colin Farrell. I keep saying Colin Farrell.
You keep calling it Tom Cruise.
He injects Tom Cruise, and as he's like fading, he's just like, "You got me thrown in jail." And it's like, I don't know. It's like
a weird scene because like he's like, you threw me in jail, but then he's like a friend about it. He was like, I'm doing you a favor. I even gave you this stick to stick in your face to make it look like you're not yourself.
It didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like there's a bit where he's just like, you helped me become who I am. I learned how to do eye surgery while I was in prison. I was like, so you're like secretly thankful for it? But he's like kind of a dick to him. The tone of it is so strange.
Yeah.
And you keep expecting that he's going to like, I thought he was
kill
like for either kill him or like purposefully botch the surgery,
like not put eyes in,
or even just only give him one eye, maybe.
Yeah.
But he perfectly does the surgery. I mean, he leaves his sandwich in a fridge with like a bunch of other gross sandwiches.
I love that scene. Oh my gosh, it's so funny because like he's like, I left you a sandwich and some milk, and he really did. And then like he grabs. And there's literally a moldy sandwich and a moldy drink above where like the fresh sandwich and fresh milk is. Wash it down. Oh, that was so green. That milk was so green.
He has a dream about the day he lost his son. He was at a pool. His son disappeared. He wakes up going, Sean! There's a really good scene.
I was like, one of the video games I've played. Sean! What is it called? Heavy Rain?
Yeah, Sean!
Isn't his name Sean in that
I
too?
think so.
Sean! I was taking my time with that game and for 15 minutes. Sean! Sean! Oh my God.
It's a good flashback sequence though. Mm-hmm. And then we get probably one of my scenes that I like a little bit better in the movie. The spiders are going in and it's very good indicative of like how they invade everybody's privacy. They just send these spiders in to scan everybody's eyes. These kids are scared and the mom's like, just hold still, let them scan your eyes. And there's people that are in like the middle of a domestic dispute. They stop, get their eyes scanned, and as soon as the spider goes away, they just start fighting again. And there's a good sequence where Tom Cruise submerges himself in an ice bath to get rid of his heat signature. And for me, that was one of the moments where I was like, oh, this is the part where the screenwriters are like jerking themselves off really hard right now. Because they're like, he submerged himself when he was holding his breath when he lost his son. And now he's being forced to do that to hide from these I saw these like metaphorical like symbolism that they were like going for. And I appreciated it, but it was also
I didn't feel that at all. All I could think of is, why are you doing that? You know, you work with them. You know what kind of equipment they use. You know that they're going to be using the heat signature thing. So that's why you're in the ice bath. But don't you think they're going to question why all of a sudden there's 26 people and not 27 and send like real people up to the room? And then you got to deal with real people instead of the spiders.
And he still ends up having to deal with the spiders anyway.
Yeah.
And
like that whole part was so
it's weird because it's like if he takes his bandages off, he's going to be blind, and then he's forced.
He's fine.
Like I thought for sure him lifting up one of the things, he was only going to have use of one of his eyes, and they were going to like show you it later.
Yeah, they even show it getting cloudy.
But then it just never factors in for the rest of the movie. It was strange. He
irrelevant.
He invades the facility. He gets Agatha. They go on the run. There's a great scene where Agatha's predicting everything that's going to happen so they can escape
Which is
from the cops.
fascinating because they said before they can only predict murders, and like that's a lie. So that goes back into like their programming to only do murders. They could prevent rapes and they can prevent all this other stuff, but they are choosing. Agatha's just a bad bitch. She's just like, grab that umbrella.
Yeah, and Samantha Morton's doing a great
Don't go home. He knows. Like, oh, that's
the balloon man. Wait.
Like, just keep waiting.
And Samantha Morton's doing a great job of being like completely out of her mind. She's great in this movie.
Yeah, she is great in this movie. I loved her.
They make it to the guy. She's trying to tell Tom Cruise like, you have a choice. You know your future. You don't have to do it. I'll give the movie credit. When Tom Cruise goes into the room where the guy that he's supposed to kill is, and there's all these pictures of these children spread out on the bed. I was like, what the hell? I was like, this guy like murders children and he just like is in a random hotel room and has these pictures just
lay around in the picture. Sorry, it was obvious that it was being set up.
That though,
when you're a detective, why aren't you?
I was glad to find out that it was a setup because I was like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. But then it's like, oh, it turns out it was a setup. The events still end up playing out. He still ends up saying like goodbye, Leo, but he says it, like in a quiet voice. He doesn't yell it like how Samantha. I will say, just to backtrack, not to gloss completely over it, but he visits this like underground tech guy who hacks into Agatha.
Oh yeah.
And download. I actually like that guy.
He's really cool.
He was like, they had like all this like, oh, he sells like visions and fantasies to people. It's like a whole like, it's a great little character that's only in the movie for like 5 minutes.
It's like a futuristic strip club.
Yeah. It's like you can basically go there and just envision any sex scenario that you want. There's like a guy who's clearly being interviewed like he's a movie star or whatever. It's like again, it's like back to Total Recall.
I like the
shit.
guy who wants to kill his boss.
Yeah, he's like, "How dare you, you sicko!" Because he sees Tom Cruise coming. It's a good scene, but and it's important because in that moment they get the rest of the Anne Lively things because you find out really early in the movie someone deleted Agatha's like memory of the Anne Lively murder and you find out that late at this point it's basically revealed. Colin Farrell's like, okay, this was a setup. Somebody set this up. You find out it's Lamar. Lamar kills Colin Farrell.
Yeah, he realizes it's a setup because he comes into the room and he goes, "Have you ever heard of an orgy of evidence. He's like, in my time of being a detective.
He's like, you know how many orgies I've had?
None.
He's like, so this is bullshit.
That's personal.
He goes to Lamar. Lamar kills him. It's sad. Tom Cruise gets arrested, put in jail, but his wife busts him out, and Tom Cruise puts the pieces together. He finds out that Lamar, he needed to murder Anne Lively because Anne Lively was Samantha Morton's
Agatha's daughter. Mom.
Agatha's mom. And there's a really good scene where
she got clean and wanted her daughter back.
Because after Tom Cruise accidentally murders Leo, he goes to visit his wife with Agatha. There's a really good scene where Agatha's describing what their son's life would have been like if he had been allowed to live. It's really tragic and good. And then it's just like I jumped when this happened because she's so quiet the whole time, and then she's like, and now you have to run again. And he's like, what? And she goes, and just like whines. I'm just going, he like screams it, but he doesn't go. He just gets arrested.
And he's just like, what? What do you mean run? What does running mean?
He gets haloed, but thankfully Laura gets to actually become a character in the movie.
Here's my question about Laura. How'd she get the eyeball?
That's the other thing I had. So this guy is a fugitive, and after he's become a fugitive, there's 2 different times in this movie where they use his eyeball to break in to the facility. Why did they not get rid of his fucking security clearance? Like, he uses it to go get Agatha.
I had that same question.
So fine. He used it. He did it. They didn't realize that he still had security clearance. After that point, you take away Tom Cruise's security clearance, right?
Yeah.
No, his wife uses the eyeball to break him out of jail. They didn't. It's such a huge plot hole. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Also, at this point, the eyeball would be rotting. It
wouldn't even be able. That's another question. Like, how's the iris and pupil still intact? It would have gone. I think an eyeball goes cloudy the moment you cut it from the head.
It's ridiculous. But it's like movie logic, I guess. There's some good stuff with Lamar and Laura. Lamar is gonna head pre-crime up again, but they set it up. They stream Agatha's memory. They show that Lamar. How do you commit a murder when you literally created a division that prevents murders? He's like, you take it. There's this thing they call echoes, where they think they're just re-experiencing the murder. So he hired somebody to kill Anne Lively, had that guy arrested, and then committed the murder exactly the way the guy was gonna commit the murder to cover it up.
Yep.
He gets revealed.
Echo gets deleted.
They catch that. It says Lamar's gonna kill Tom Cruise, but then Tom Cruise is like, you can make a choice. Lamar commits suicide. And then the after credits is like, they disbanded pre-crime and the psychics get to live out in the woods and everything's happily ever after. And I was like,
psychics get to live out in the woods.
It's like, I have so many questions. Like, I do like that the movie is implying, like, yes, this is a weird fascist, this weird thing where you're arresting people for crimes they didn't actually commit. But I'm also like, but they definitely were preventing murders too.
Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of people that are going to be.
But were they? Were they?
I mean,
how do they know that it actually would have happened?
They don't know.
Because like how the one doctor said, they always predict the murder, but they don't always agree.
Yeah.
So
it says that most of the time, if there's a difference, Agatha sees things differently. There's different future outcomes.
Which makes no sense. If Agatha is seeing something differently, why won't you just follow what Agatha is seeing? Because she's the strong one.
I don't know.
I'm also bothered by the fact that he kills himself at the end. Like, that doesn't follow through with his character. Like, he was willing to kill people. He killed Colin Farrell. He killed Anne Lively. And now he's like gonna bitch out all of a sudden. Like, I'm gonna kill myself.
I will say he did everything he did to preserve pre-crime.
Yeah.
Even manipulating Tom Cruise by being like really leveraging the dead son thing against him, by being like, if we had pre-crime, your son wouldn't have gotten killed. And that's why you believe in it so strongly. And he literally killed a woman to prevent Agatha from going back with her mother so that pre-crime could exist. And by killing himself, he actively goes against the prediction of crime. Thus,
proves that it's not.
It proves that it's not real. And so, like, I guess maybe it's meant to be a redemptive moment for him, where he's like doing the right thing.
Is this the moment to have a redemptive moment?
It's questionable. I have a lot of. It's like, I don't know if it's. I think you could definitely say that like the last like 20 to 30 minutes of this movie start to stray a little off the path at that point. Even though they're still dealing with stuff that was set up at the beginning of the movie, they're not like introducing new things. It's all stemming from the Anne Lively thing that was set up early in the movie. But it's like, him getting to Leo, like that feels like the climax and him like facing down. But then it
I feel
feels like
the
movie
should have ended there.
it just goes on for like another 20 minutes while it wraps the rest of it up. And it's a strange choice. But yeah, I mean, that's the movie. Happily Ever After, I guess.
Oh, yeah, kind of, because she's pregnant.
She's pregnant. He's going to have a new son.
Yeah, they remarried. That's so weird. That part's so weird. Like, I can't stand to look at him because he looks like my son. Let's have another baby.
He's got his shit together for some reason. For some reason, getting rid of pre-crime means he's going to like clean up his act. I guess I will say, I think it's heavily implied that Agatha basically confirms that their son is dead, and maybe that let him kind of have closure on it, and maybe he was finally able to move on. Because like I said, it's like when he gets Leo, he's like, is he still alive? At that point, I didn't realize that he still thought there was a chance that maybe his son was still alive.
Devastated.
It's pretty brutal. And he's just like, I sank him in the bay, but he came back up. I was gentle.
Put him in a barrel.
I was gentle. I was just like, this is creepy.
That part was hard for me because like I have a son. And so anything where a child, like I can't even watch Dumbo without crying because how they treat Dumbo and that. Like, and like when the moment they said put him in a barrel, I'm like, oh, no. No.
So, but yeah, Agatha says like, what? He's running to you. He wants to run just like his dad. And it's just like, oh shit. It's
Stop. You're going to make me cry.
It's pretty brutal.
I was glad you didn't go over that scene.
But I will say like, I like that because I had a lot of questions about the precogs. I'm like, they're people though. You can't just treat people. They're like, oh, we just keep them doped up all the time. They're fine, whatever. So I like that they get a happy ending, but I also am like, and I feel like pre-crime was very like invasion of privacy, fascist thing. But there is another part of me that's like, if I was going to get murdered and like somebody showed up to prevent it, I would be grateful for that.
Murder me.
Okay. I like the take.
I would feel like, let him.
Good to know.
Don't arrest him.
Just putting it out on the public airwaves.
Yeah. Oh no, don't do that.
You can murder me.
Wait till my son's 18. Then you can murder me.
Okay. In the credits, Philip K. Dick novel, which I think is important. John Williams score, classic composer. Worked with Steven Spielberg a million times.
What has he done anything with like? Oh, probably Jurassic Park. Because I'm trying to like figure out why did it sound so like familiar.
Oh, John Williams is Jurassic Park. He's Jaws. He's Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like he's all.
Did you do Harry Potter?
I don't think he did. Well, I don't know for sure.
There were definitely some Harry Potter vibes there a few minutes.
John Williams is like the god of composers. And I'm sure every composer that has come after John Williams is aping from John Williams.
I don't know. I like Danny Elfman.
And Danny Elfman, he's unique. Like there's like Danny Elfman, Hans Zimmer.
Yeah. I like the creepy vibes. So.
Yeah.
But no, I think he did a great job.
The score for this movie is very epic.
Oh yeah,
like it's like when there's like action sequences, it's like dun 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 dun, and it's like going, and you're like you recognize a John Williams score. But speaking of score, I think we should get into our scores. Okay. And so I told Taylor before the show started, we do a 1 out of 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. And if you've never listened to the show before, again, if you're joining us because you're just a big Taylor Guy fan, or maybe a big Minority Report fan, my scores for movies do tend to be a little harsh. For example, my first episode, I gave The Godfather an 8.5 out of 10. Any other day of the week, that's a 10 out of 10 movie. But here on Clear Tinted Classics, it is an 8.5. And so what do I give Minority Report? I think talking about it, and also I think I've been emboldened by you saying you're not like head over heels for this movie.
Yeah. I'm definitely not giving it a 10 out of 10. I can tell you that much.
I think for the purposes of this show, I'm just going to give it a flat 6.
Yeah.
A 6 out of 10. I just have too many questions. I think the characters, while they have good bases, I think they don't really go anywhere. I think there's a lot of standout moments, though. There's some good action scenes. I love the spider sequence. I love everything with Agatha. Like once Agatha's out with them on the run, there's so many good moments with her. I like it, but it fucking drags in the last 20 minutes. It drags in general. When I saw there was an hour left, when I paused it, I was like, what the actual fuck is going on?
Devastating. I was trying to watch it real quick before coming here and realized I still had an hour left. I was like, oh, well, I refreshed the first part of it. I watched it yesterday, though, so.
Peek behind the curtain, I watched it for the very first time last night, but I didn't start it till like 11:30. At one point it's like 1:32 in the morning. I was like, fuck me. But like, yeah, 6 out of 10 for me. How about you, Taylor? What would you give it?
I want to give it. I was gonna say 8, but like after we talked about it, I'll probably give it a 7.5.
Okay.
And the only reason why it's that high is just nostalgia. I remember watching it when it first came out.
That's a great question.
My 12-year-old body and mind loved that movie. Me as an adult, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many parts that I'm like, this is dumb.
So that is a great question, though. And that's a topic that we talk.
I'd probably give it a 6, too, if it wasn't like nostalgia for it. But nostalgia gives it a hard 7.5.
So for you, there is enough nostalgia attached to this movie that it does kind of give you some goodwill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I bought it on DVD. Like a few years ago.
That's very interesting to know because having fresh to the movie, having no nostalgia attached. There's now like I'm not watching it like, oh, this scene's coming up.
Yeah.
Like I just was like, what's gonna happen?
Shit, I start crying like before sad scenes start happening in that movie. I don't know. I just some kind of nostalgia to it. I love that Agatha is the strong one because she's a woman. I love the whole sci-fi of it, of like the cars. I love futuristic movies, and like it definitely has like a iRobot type feel, or what was that other movie I was gonna say? Future movies. iRobot's all I can think of right now.
I thought of iRobot just because of the self-driving cars for sure.
But I think iRobot came out after it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7.5, very respectable score. So now we'll finish up with recommendations. I warned you going into the show, although I didn't warn you very far in advance. So if you have trouble thinking of one, that's okay.
Oh, no, I got it.
Well, why don't you go first then? Okay. Here on the show, we try to recommend movies. Maybe it's a movie you love, you want more people to see. Maybe you think it's obscure and more people should see it. What's your recommendation?
Can I recommend 2?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, the first one is Harold and Maude.
Okay, sure.
Have you seen it?
I have not, but I know of it.
It's a weird movie. It's definitely like if you like weird movies and like weird vibes, like that's your movie to go. Made me fall in love with the song Dancing with Myself. Great song. The other one would be The Lighthouse.
The recent one?
Yeah, with Robert Pattinson and
Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. Oh, that's another weird movie. Don't watch that if you don't like weird movies.
Okay. Well, I've seen The Lighthouse.
Okay, yeah. I was just telling people who are listening.
Yeah, The Lighthouse is very strange.
Harold and Maude is not as weird as that one.
I will say I was a big proponent of The Lighthouse, and I've recommended it to people and had them turn around and tell me I'm an insane person and that it's a piece of shit.
I only recommend it to people who I know like weird movies. It's not a movie I would recommend to people.
It's not like, it wasn't like my favorite movie of 2019, but I honestly think it's nothing's objective, but I think it's for the movie that the director clearly wanted to make. I think it's a perfect movie. Oh yeah. Like it's so well crafted. It's beautiful.
It's the first movie in a long time that made me go, huh? Like it was really like fascinating to watch. If you want to prank your grandma, I'll recommend this movie, The Lighthouse.
Yeah, if you want your grandma to see Willem Dafoe fuck a pillow or something, this is
hole in the mattress.
Yeah, The Lighthouse.
Or Robert Pattinson fuck a mermaid.
Hey, everybody wants to see that. But those are great recommendations. Harold and Maude, I'm definitely going to do for the show someday.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I love it.
And The Lighthouse, if you like weird movies, it's from the director of The Witch. Mm-hmm.
Is it Witch or Vivitch?
I jokingly call it Vivitch.
I always call it Vivitch. I will never call it The Witch. That is Vivitch. That is the Vivitch.
Vivitch. He's actually got a movie.
I loved that movie too.
He's got a movie coming out next year, I think, called The Norseman or something like that. Ooh. With like Alexander Skarsgård and Nicole Kidman. It's the cast is fucking stacked. I'm so excited.
When is it coming out?
I think next year. Oh. I'm front row center for that for sure.
Hell yeah!
I actually got to see The Lighthouse in theaters as well.
Really?
I did. They played it at the cinema. They played it at the Cinema Center. But yeah, it is on Amazon Prime right now. Yeah. I don't know if it will be when I actually release this episode, but
I think Harold and Maude is on Netflix.
Okay.
So
sweet.
I think it is. I just watched it.
I'm excited to watch it. I love dark comedy.
Yeah. Oh.
I love like jokes about suicide and stuff like that.
Oh, then you'll love it.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that movie.
It's so good. I forgot. I hadn't watched it since like years ago because my grandma told me to watch it, weirdly enough. And she's like, yeah, it's a great movie. I loved it back then. And so I watched it, and like the first 10 minutes of just like suicide. It's great. It's great.
I realized I didn't think very hard about what I was going to recommend, so I'm just going to wing it.
Okay.
I mentioned it earlier in the episode. I'm just going to recommend Edge of Tomorrow.
Okay.
Or as it's sometimes known as Live, Die, Repeat. It's based on, I think, a comic book called Live, Die, Repeat.
Okay.
Or a novel. The novel's called like Live, Die, Repeat. They retitled it Edge of Tomorrow. Either one of those names works when you're looking up the movie. It's a Groundhog's Day scenario. It's Tom Cruise and I believe Charlize Theron. He basically relives the same. He's like this like... He's almost like this like he's in the military, but he's more of like a desk jockey.
Yeah.
And he gets demoted and sent to the front lines to fight this alien force
When
after
did it come out?
It's like 2014, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because I remember that coming. Who's in it again?
It's Tom Cruise and like Charlize Theron and like there's like a bunch of good character actors too. But he basically like he gets killed, but then wakes up like right back when he's like getting dropped off by the Jeep.
Yeah.
And so he basically like he's able to live the day, same day.
Like respawning almost.
Yeah, he gets to respawn. It's a very video game logic. And so he gets to master the battlefield. And so there's like great sequences where he's training and then it cuts to like he's clearly like he knows every alien, like where it's gonna pop up and he's able to gun it down and shit. And it's really good. And it didn't do very well in the box office. I think it's since become a fairly well-known movie.
Well, it came out in 2014. That's when people started kind of like working their way away from Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Although,
although the Mission Impossible movies still do really well.
Oh, yeah. Well. Mission Impossible always do well. Same with Die Hard or anything that has like that fan base established. But like anything new after what happened between him and Katie Holmes and like he's crazy. So.
For me, it's like hearing you say that you hadn't seen the movie, I feel comfortable recommending it because I love it. I think it's an excellent action movie. Definitely one of the better action movies in the last 10 years for sure. So if for some reason you haven't seen it, check it out. I highly recommend it.
I was looking on my Plex to see if it was on there. It's not. I gotta find it.
But that's it. Thank you so much for joining me.
I had so much fun.
I would love to. I have a lot more theories about Minority Report, but we only have the space for like another, like literally 5 minutes. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. You've been a great guest, Taylor, and I will catch you, audience, on the flip flop later. Bye, guys.